William Pitt 1783-1801. William Pitt the Younger, born in 1759, assumed the mantle of leadership at a remarkably young age. His significance lies not only in his precocious political career but also in his ability to confront and address the challenges posed by the post-American Revolution and French Revolutionary era. The son of William Pitt the Elder, a prominent political figure in his own right, the younger Pitt displayed a keen intellect and a deep commitment to public service from an early age. Pitt's rise to power coincided with a period of profound change, both domestically and internationally. His tenure as Prime Minister, spanning from 1783 to 1801, saw him grapple with economic uncertainties, navigate the complexities of European diplomacy, and confront internal challenges posed by political opposition and social unrest. William Pitt the Younger's early life was marked by the weight of political legacy and family influence. Born on May 28, 1759, into a distinguished political family, he was the second son of William Pitt the Elder, the Earl of Chatham. Growing up in this environment, young Pitt was immersed in the world of politics from a tender age. His father, a charismatic and influential statesman, undoubtedly played a pivotal role in shaping Pitt's worldview and instilling in him a sense of duty towards public service. The elder Pitt's principled stance during the 7 Years' War and his efforts to consolidate British imperial interests left an indelible mark on his son. The family's political connections and aristocratic background provided William Pitt the Younger with a privileged entry point into the corridors of power, setting the stage for his future political career. Pitt's formal entry into politics began when he enrolled at Cambridge University at the age of 14. His academic pursuits were, however, cut short by the sudden death of his father in 1778. This turn of events thrust the young Pitt into the political arena, as he inherited his father's parliamentary seat in the House of Commons at the age of 21. Despite his youth, Pitt quickly distinguished himself through his eloquence, intellect, and a natural aptitude for parliamentary debate. His early achievements included advocacy for fiscal responsibility and criticism of perceived corruption within the government. In 1782, at the age of 23, Pitt was appointed as Chancellor of the Exchequer in Lord Shelburne's government, showcasing his rapid ascent within the political hierarchy. At the core of Pitt's leadership style was a commitment to pragmatic reform and fiscal responsibility. His political philosophy, shaped by Enlightenment ideals, emphasized the importance of individual liberties, free trade, and constitutional governance. Unlike some of his contemporaries, Pitt sought to bridge the gap between traditional aristocracy and the emerging forces of industrial and commercial power. Pitt's leadership style was characterized by a rare combination of strategic vision and a practical approach to governance. He believed in the importance of stable finances to support national defense and economic development. His economic policies aimed at reducing national debt and reforming taxation, demonstrating a forward-looking approach to the challenges of his time. In navigating the complexities of British politics, Pitt also displayed a willingness to reach across party lines for the greater good, earning him a reputation as a unifier. These early experiences and principles would lay the foundation for Pitt's future endeavors as he stepped into the role of Prime Minister during a period of profound national and international change. As William Pitt the Younger assumed the role of Prime Minister in 1783, he faced a British economy still reeling from the aftermath of the American Revolution. The cost of the war and the loss of the American colonies had left the country in a precarious financial position. National debt was soaring, and the fiscal situation was dire. Pitt recognized the urgent need for economic stability and embarked on a series of ambitious financial reforms. Pitt's economic policies were geared towards addressing the fiscal crisis. His approach involved reducing government expenditure, streamlining taxation, and tackling the inefficiencies in public finances. The Sinking Fund, established in 1786, was a key component of Pitt's strategy to retire national debt systematically. Despite facing resistance and criticism, Pitt remained steadfast in his commitment to restoring financial stability, setting the stage for a more resilient economic foundation. The eruption of the French Revolution in 1789 had profound implications for British politics. The revolutionary fervor across the English Channel raised fears of political upheaval and radicalism in Britain. The initially optimistic view of the French Revolution as an extension of the Enlightenment ideals gave way to anxiety about the potential spread of revolutionary fervor and its impact on the established order. Pitt, while sympathetic to Enlightenment principles, was cautious about the revolutionary developments in France. The execution of Louis XVI in 1793 and the subsequent radicalization of the French government intensified concerns in Britain. The ideological and geopolitical ramifications of the French Revolution exacerbated existing political tensions, leading to the suspension of diplomatic relations between Britain and France in 1793. The French Revolutionary Wars, which commenced in 1792, drew much of Europe into a complex web of alliances and conflicts. Pitt navigated the delicate balance of maintaining British interests on the global stage while responding to the changing dynamics in Europe. The rise of Napoleon Bonaparte and his expansionist ambitions added another layer of complexity to international relations. Pitt pursued a policy of containment against the revolutionary and Napoleonic forces, forming coalitions with other European powers such as Austria, Prussia, and Russia. These coalitions aimed to curb the expansionist aspirations of France and protect the balance of power in Europe. However, despite early successes, the shifting alliances and military setbacks underscored the challenges of managing the intricate global dynamics of the time. In the context of global trade and imperialism, Britain's position as a maritime and economic powerhouse further complicated its diplomatic relations. Navigating the geopolitical landscape required a delicate diplomatic touch, and Pitt's ability to engage with other European powers reflected his commitment to preserving British interests while contributing to the stability of the continent. Central to Pitt's vision for economic recovery was a comprehensive set of economic reforms and fiscal policies. Recognizing the need to stimulate economic growth and trade, he pursued policies that promoted free enterprise and reduced trade restrictions. Pitt's government worked to dismantle trade barriers and promote the principles of free trade, fostering an environment conducive to commercial development. The consolidation of public finances remained a key focus throughout Pitt's first term. In addition to the sinking fund, he introduced measures to manage the national debt and address the structural issues in the financial system. Pitt's commitment to responsible financial management earned him a reputation as a pragmatic and forward-thinking leader, laying the groundwork for the economic prosperity that would follow in the 19th century. Pitt's diplomatic endeavors were characterized by a delicate balancing act, maintaining alliances and navigating the complexities of European politics. The alliances he forged aimed to preserve the status quo and prevent the dominance of any single power in Europe. Although these coalitions faced challenges and shifting dynamics, Pitt's diplomatic efforts reflected his commitment to securing a stable and secure environment for Britain amidst the tumultuous events unfolding across the Channel. During William Pitt the Younger's first term as Prime Minister, he faced formidable opposition from political adversaries who scrutinized and criticized his policies. The main opposition parties were the Whigs, led by Charles James Fox, and the radical elements within the political landscape influenced by the ideas emanating from the French Revolution. The opposition parties levied various criticisms against Pitt's administration. Financial policies. Critics, especially among the Whigs, accused Pitt of imposing regressive taxes that disproportionately burdened the lower classes. They argued that his fiscal policies favored the wealthy and exacerbated social inequalities. Foreign policy. The opposition criticized Pitt's approach to foreign affairs, particularly his involvement in European coalitions against revolutionary France. Some argued that these interventions were costly and diverted resources from domestic needs. Repression of dissent. As social unrest and radical sentiments simmered, particularly in the wake of the French Revolution, Pitt faced criticism for adopting repressive measures to stifle dissent. The suspension of habeas corpus and the passage of laws restricting freedom of assembly were contentious issues that fueled opposition grievances. Industrialization and social change. The nascent stages of the Industrial Revolution brought about profound social and economic transformations. Urbanization, the rise of factories, and changes in labor practices led to both opportunities and hardships for different segments of society. Agricultural distress. Agricultural communities faced economic difficulties due to changes in farming practices and the enclosures movement. The displacement of rural populations and the impact on traditional agrarian lifestyles added to the challenges confronting Pitt's government. Unemployment and poverty. Economic fluctuations and the changing nature of work contributed to rising unemployment and poverty in certain regions. These issues sparked social unrest and added to the demands for reform. Social reforms. Pitt recognized the need for social reforms to address the changing dynamics of a rapidly industrializing Britain. Efforts were made to improve working conditions, regulate child labor, and address some of the more egregious social injustices. Repressive measures. Faced with the specter of radicalism and dissent, Pitt adopted repressive measures to maintain order. The suspension of habeas corpus in 1794 allowed for the detention of individuals suspected of plotting against the state, demonstrating a commitment to stability amid internal and external pressures. Economic policies. Pitt's economic policies, including those aimed at reducing national debt and fostering free trade, were intended to stimulate economic growth and address social disparities. The pursuit of fiscal responsibility and economic reforms aimed to create a more stable and equitable economic environment. In navigating these internal challenges, Pitt's responses were marked by a delicate balancing act. His administration sought to address legitimate social and economic grievances while maintaining political stability in the face of radicalism and opposition criticism. Pitt's leadership during this period reflected a pragmatic approach to governance, attempting to reconcile the demands of a changing society with the need for political order and economic prosperity. William Pitt the Younger played a crucial role in the movement to abolish the transatlantic slave trade, marking a significant humanitarian and moral stance during his time as Prime Minister. Formation of abolitionist alliances. Pitt actively supported and collaborated with prominent abolitionists, including William Wilberforce and Thomas Clarkson. Together, they formed a powerful alliance within the political sphere, advocating for the end of the slave trade through the Society for Effecting the Abolition of the Slave Trade in 1787. Parliamentary advocacy. Pitt utilized his political influence to promote the cause of abolition within the British Parliament. He recognized the moral imperative to address the inhumane conditions of the slave trade, and in 1788, he introduced a resolution in the House of Commons for the gradual abolition of the slave trade. Support for the Middle Passage Act. In 1788, Pitt supported the Middle Passage Act, which aimed to improve conditions on slave ships during the transatlantic journey. Although this act fell short of full abolition, it reflected a growing awareness of the need for reform. Parliamentary maneuvering. Pitt faced opposition from vested interests and those benefiting economically from the slave trade. Despite challenges, he skillfully navigated parliamentary debates, using his oratory skills and political acumen to build support for the abolitionist cause. Moral leadership. Pitt's advocacy for the abolition of the slave trade marked a significant moment in British political history. It demonstrated a commitment to moral leadership and a recognition of the human rights abuses inherent in the transatlantic slave trade. The abolitionist movement was driven not only by economic or political considerations but also by a sense of moral duty. Humanitarian values. The abolition of the slave trade represented a triumph of humanitarian values over economic interests. Pitt and the abolitionist movement framed the issue in moral terms, emphasizing the inherent dignity and rights of enslaved individuals. This moral stance resonated with the public and contributed to the broader social and cultural shift toward condemning slavery. International impact. Britain's decision to abolish the slave trade had ripple effects globally. Other nations, influenced by Britain's moral leadership, began to reconsider their involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. The British decision contributed to the broader international movement towards abolition. Shift in public opinion. The abolitionist movement, with Pitt at its forefront, played a crucial role in shaping public opinion. As awareness of the atrocities of the slave trade increased, public sentiment shifted, creating pressure on lawmakers to act. The emergence of abolitionist literature, public lectures, and activism helped build a groundswell of support for the cause. Legacy of reform. While the abolition of the slave trade was a significant achievement, it was only the beginning of the broader movement to eradicate slavery entirely. The successful passage of the Slave Trade Act in 1807, which made the slave trade illegal within the British Empire, was a testament to the lasting impact of Pitt's early efforts. William Pitt the Younger's resignation in 1801 was influenced by a combination of domestic and international factors, as well as personal considerations. Internal political pressures. the political landscape in Britain was marked by internal divisions and external threats. Domestically, Pitt faced increasing opposition to his policies, particularly regarding his fiscal measures and the conduct of the war against France. Discontent within Parliament and among the public added pressure on the government. International challenges. The ongoing war with France, part of the broader Napoleonic Wars, strained Britain's resources and finances. The financial burden of the conflict, coupled with the inability to secure decisive victories, contributed to a sense of frustration and weariness among the British populace. King George III's opposition. King George III, who had supported Pitt throughout much of his political career, became increasingly opposed to Catholic emancipation, a policy Pitt championed. The king's opposition created a political deadlock and strained the relationship between the monarch and the prime minister. Personal health concerns. Pitt's health was in decline during this period, exacerbated by the stress of his responsibilities and the ongoing challenges facing the nation. His physical and mental well-being played a role in his decision to resign. In conclusion, William Pitt the Younger's legacy is one of multifaceted contributions to British politics, governance, and societal values. His impact on economic policy, foreign relations, and social reform remains indelible, marking him as a key figure in British history during a transformative and tumultuous period. The evaluation of his legacy reflects a nuanced understanding of the challenges and successes inherent in political leadership. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it informative, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this in the future.